Hello and welcome to the Remote Revolution, a podcast by Virtual Mojo. This is where we explore how modern businesses are transforming the way they work through remote teams, virtual support, and smarter operational strategies. In each episode, we bring you insights, conversations, and practical ideas to help entrepreneurs, leaders, and growing companies build efficient, scalable, and future-ready organizations. If you're looking to work smarter, scale faster, and unlock the power of remote talent, you're in the right place. Let's begin.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 26 of the Remote Revolution with your host, Aneeq, and I am joined by Umaima as our guest. Today, we'll talk about how your remote team looked productive in January and why July reveals the actual truth.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into this one because it's such a massive issue right now.
Oh, it totally is. And, our mission for this deep dive today is to unpack a really fascinating stack of sources we've got.
Right, about that huge blind spot for leaders, yeah.
Exactly. Like, what if the biggest warning sign that your remote team is quietly falling apart is, well, that all your productivity dashboards are actually flashing green?
I know it sounds completely backwards, but relying purely on those green indicators is, honestly, it's one of the most dangerous traps a leadership team can fall into.
Yeah.
You think you're cruising at altitude, but the engine's actually stalled miles ago.
That is such a wild thought.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at why remote teams that seem incredibly successful right after a transition, like you're just killing it, why they start to deeply struggle a few months later.
Right, and more importantly, how to spot the difference between genuine effectiveness and the illusion of, just being busy.
Just sheer busyness, yeah. So let's set the stage a bit from the sources.
Okay.
The conversation around remote work usually fixates intensely on that launch phase, right? Companies spend months agonizing over the software and the hardware.
Oh, totally. The rollout is everything to them.
Right. But almost nobody's actually preparing for the maintenance phase that comes after.
Yeah, that's exactly what the research highlights. Let's look at the textbook scenario from the sources.
Okay, picture this.
Yeah. So picture a company shifting a big chunk of its team to a remote structure. The launch happens in January.
The classic New Year rollout.
Exactly. And for those first few months, it's just a total home run. I mean, communication is crisp, output is super steady.
And leadership is probably thrilled, right? Because their worst fears about everyone slacking off at home didn't happen.
Right. Actually, they're seeing the opposite. The team looks flawlessly productive. So leadership looks at that January data and they just feel completely validated.
Like, look at us, we nailed it.
Yep. According to the metrics, there are 0 red flags. It looks like a total victory, and management just breathes this massive sigh of relief.
They think they've permanently solved the remote work puzzle.
Exactly. They check the box and move on.
But we know the July slump is coming.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, if the system they built is fundamentally flawed, why doesn't it just break down on day one?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, like why do those first 3 months look so deceptively perfect?
Well, the sources point out that this initial success is really driven by a perfect storm of temporary psychological conditions.
Temporary being the key word there.
Very temporary. And the biggest factor is actually the Hawthorne effect.
Oh, the Hawthorne effect. That's the psychological thing where people change their behavior just because they know they're being watched.
Yeah,
right.
That is the exact mechanism, yeah. During a new transition, management is watching this remote rollout like a hawk.
Because it's a massive risk for the company.
Exactly. And the employees are highly aware of this scrutiny. Plus, they're usually really motivated to prove that the remote model works,
Oh, for sure. They want to keep working from home in their sweatpants.
Right. They don't want leadership saying, well, this failed, everybody back to the office.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It actually makes me think of driving past a police car on the highway.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah, like the moment you spot the cruiser, what do? You sit up straight, you check your mirrors, both hands on the wheel.
You're suddenly the best driver in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You make sure you are going exactly the speed limit. You are a perfect driver for about 2 miles.
Right.
But the system, like your actual driving habit, isn't what's keeping you going the speed limit.
Nope, it's just the observer.
Right. Once that police car is out of sight, you naturally drift right back to going, 10 miles over the limit.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. Because the early remote structure is never truly tested by the realities of daily work.
So it just looks strong.
Yeah, it looks strong, but it's not being held up by its own self-sustaining design.
Yeah.
It's held up by constant heavy supervision and, honestly, the nervous adrenaline of the employees.
Wow.
The system isn't actually working. The people are just working overtime to artificially prop it up.
Like replying to Slack messages in 2 seconds flat?
Exactly. Replying instantly. Double-checking work out of paranoia, over-communicating simply because the transition is so fresh.
Which means the foundation of the team's productivity isn't built on concrete at all. It's built on adrenaline and novelty.
And adrenaline is completely finite.
Yeah, you can't run a company on a permanent state of high alert. It's just like a New Year's resolution diet.
Oh, totally.
You meal prep perfectly for 3 weeks through sheer willpower, but eventually you're going to order a pizza.
Exactly. So what happens when we hit that mid-year drift? We get to Q2 or Q3, the novelty wears off, the police car is in the rearview mirror.
All right, what actually starts breaking down?
Well, the breakdown begins when the attention of leadership inevitably shifts.
Because they have other things to do.
Yeah, management realizes the remote transition didn't cause the sky to fall, so they pivot to other priorities. A new product launch, a looming deadline.
End of year revenue goals, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And without anyone consciously deciding to reduce oversight, all those informal habits that propped up the early success just quietly evaporate.
I want to get really specific here because this is fascinating. When you say informal habits, what are we actually losing day to day?
We lose the quick, just checking in direct messages.
Oh, right.
The daily 15-minute stand-up meetings gradually become weekly meetings, and then bi-weekly meetings.
I have definitely seen that happen.
Yeah, and the close monitoring of shared documents just stops. And when that hypervigilance vanishes, human nature just takes over.
People optimize for the path of least resistance.
Precisely. Small inconsistencies start to compound.
Meaning, if nobody is checking to see if I updated the client tracking spreadsheet, and updating it is tedious, I'm just going to subconsciously stop doing it.
Yep, to save time for other things. Response times slow down just a little bit. Documentation stops being updated in real time.
And recurring tasks that used to take an hour suddenly take an hour and a half.
Exactly, often with no clear explanation as to why.
So if you're listening to this and checking your own metrics dashboard right now, you might be thinking, hold on, I look at my team's dashboard every single Friday.
Right.
And it says 100 client tickets were closed this week, just like they were in January. The work is getting done.
But is it really?
Yeah, if the wheels are falling off the wagon, why aren't the dashboards catching it?
Because of something called the output trap. Those dashboards are heavily skewed toward measuring output, which is just a fundamentally flawed proxy for actual performance.
Okay, I love this concept.
We are brushing up against Goodhart's law here.
Goodhart's law. Remind me what that is again.
It basically says, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's apply that to our remote team. If the target is just number of tickets closed, how does that stop being a good measure of the team's actual health?
Because the human brain will ruthlessly optimize to hit the target, even if it degrades the quality of the work.
Oh, I see.
Output metrics only show one dimension of performance, and that's sheer busyness. They do not measure effectiveness.
Yeah, they definitely don't measure judgment.
Absolutely not. Let's use your closed ticket example. An employee can close a ticket perfectly, right? Take 20 minutes to resolve the root issue, document the fix, ensure the client is totally satisfied.
Sounds like a great employee.
Right. And that counts as one closed ticket.
Okay.
Or that same employee can apply a 2-minute Band-Aid fix.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. They don't document it. They don't find the root cause. They just get the error message off their screen and hit resolve.
And that also counts as one closed ticket.
Exactly. The dashboard treats both actions identically.
Wow. That is terrifying. So when the early adrenaline fades and the daily check-ins stop, the employee who is pressed for time is obviously going to choose the 2-minute Band-Aid fix.
Because the dashboard rewards the volume of activity, not the depth of the solution.
They are hitting their targets, but they are secretly creating this massive backlog of future problems.
Because that client is guaranteed to call back next week.
You've isolated the exact mechanism of the decline there. The data isn't lying to leadership, it's drastically incomplete.
Yeah, it measures the sheer volume of activity while quality, consistency, and accountability are quietly declining beneath the surface.
What else gets dropped when people optimize for volume?
Well, unmeasured tasks. Things like cross-training a colleague, updating standard operating procedures, taking the time to deep solve a complex problem.
The things that don't show up on a graph.
Right. Those are the very first things to evaporate when the team is optimizing strictly for output.
So the foundation is rotting away, but from the street, the house still looks freshly painted. The dashboards are green,
Perfectly green.
which leads us to a really troubling question. If the metrics are basically lying by omission, how does the truth actually get out? Who rings the alarm bell?
Almost always, the alarm is triggered by an external collision.
Wait, external. So the drift is rarely caught internally.
Almost never. It usually takes a major client complaining about dramatically slower follow-up times.
Oh, yikes.
Or a senior executive from a completely different department noticing that a crucial task has been handled inconsistently for, 2 months.
It takes an outside force colliding with the degraded system to expose the cracks.
Exactly.
I have a hard time believing that the team itself doesn't realize things are falling apart.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm an employee doing the day-to-day work, shouldn't I notice that we've stopped updating the master files? Why isn't the team raising their hands and saying, hey, we're drifting?
Because human beings are biologically wired to normalize their environment through sensory adaptation.
That's readaptation.
Right. For the employees living inside the workflow day to day, the drift is so gradual that their baseline for normal simply shifts along with it.
This makes me think of living in a slightly messy house, but on a much deeper neurological level.
Oh, that's exactly it.
It's not just that clutter builds up over the week. You leave a jacket on a chair on Monday, a stack of mail on the counter on Tuesday.
Yeah?
It's that by Friday, your brain literally filters the pile of mail out of your visual field. It's sensory adaptation.
Just like how you stop noticing a continuous hum from your air conditioner after 10 minutes.
Right. The employees just habituate to the degraded process.
That analogy perfectly captures the psychology at play. The employees don't see the mess because they have slowly accepted the degraded process as the new standard operating procedure.
It's just how things are done now.
Yeah. But the second a guest walks through your front door, or in our case, the second an external client interacts with the team, they see the disaster immediately.
Because they haven't been habituated to the mess, they still have an objective baseline.
Exactly. They aren't living in the drift.
So the external trigger happens, the guest walks in and points out the mess, the client yells at the manager.
Which is never fun.
Right. And leadership finally investigates, and they have this rude awakening. They realize that the informal safety net of constant communication from January is completely gone.
Completely vanished.
So what happens next? Because my instinct, if I'm a manager who just got yelled at by a client, is to panic.
Oh, naturally.
My instinct is to install tracking software, demand end-of-day reports from everyone, and become a total micromanager just to regain control.
Which is the most common reaction and also the absolute worst possible reaction.
Oh, really?
Yes. Reverting to constant oversight is neither scalable for the manager nor sustainable for the team. It burns out leadership and it deeply demoralizes the employees.
That makes sense. Nobody likes a micromanager.
Right. The sources we're examining are very clear on the solution here. You have to move away from supervision and toward genuine systems.
Okay, so how do we do that?
The first step of that transition is something called the audit.
The audit. That sounds a little intimidating. How does a manager actually execute this without sounding like they are launching some kind of internal investigation?
It can sound scary, but the audit is fundamentally about comparing how the work is actually being done right now against the original transition documentation from January.
Okay.
You don't just look at the output numbers, because we already know those are misleading.
The output trap.
Right. You have to sit in on the current process. You ask an employee to walk you through a specific task step by step on a screen share.
So if I'm auditing Dave, who is in charge of the client database, I just get on a call and say, Dave, I share your screen and show me exactly how you log a new entry.
Yeah.
And then what? Do I correct him as he goes? Like, oh, Dave, you missed a spot.
No, you just watch and take notes.
Oh, interesting.
You are hunting for the silent drift. You want to see where steps were skipped, where a process was informally simplified without approval, or where roles have blurred.
I see.
You might watch Dave's screen and realize he stopped cross-referencing a crucial secondary database back in March simply because that database takes 3 minutes to load and nobody was ever checking that step anyway.
So you find these gaps where the path of least resistance just kind of took over.
Exactly.
And often I imagine leaders find that some of these processes were never actually documented in the first place.
Oh, all the time.
They only worked in January because people were constantly slacking each other to fill in the blanks.
Exactly right. Once you identify those unspoken gaps, the fix is to rebuild explicit ownership.
Explicit ownership?
Yeah, because over time, responsibilities blur in remote teams. You ask, who is supposed to be updating the weekly client tracker? and you get 3 different answers.
Dave thought Sarah was doing it. Sarah thought Dave was doing it.
Exactly. The audit draws hard lines of accountability again. You replace those one-time onboarding documents with periodic, scheduled workflow reviews.
But let me push back on how this actually feels on the ground.
Yeah.
If I'm an employee in this scenario, I've been hitting my output targets all year. My dashboard is green.
Right.
And suddenly, my manager wants to do a screen share audit of my workflow and then starts reassigning explicit ownership of my tasks. I am going to feel incredibly micromanaged.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to feel like management just doesn't trust me anymore. How do you implement this without causing a total mutiny?
That tension is very real, and the sources highlight that if leaders ignore the emotional component of this, the audit will backfire completely.
It's all about how you frame it.
Yes. The communication strategy is just as important as the operational strategy. You have to actively frame this to the team by separating the person from the process.
Separating the person from the process. I like that.
The conversation cannot be, I think you are slacking off. The conversation must be, I think our current system is failing you, and I need to see where the friction is.
That's a crucial distinction. You're shifting the mindset from remote work was a one-time transition to remote work is an ongoing maintenance process.
Exactly.
You are basically telling the employee, I don't trust our lack of structure, but I totally trust you to help me fix it.
Yes. The goal is to stress test the architecture of how the team collaborates. Relying on unspoken, informal habits isn't fair to the employees either, because it forces them to rely on guesswork.
Which is exhausting.
Very. And while some employees might initially feel slighted, many will actually welcome the renewed clarity. Ambiguity is incredibly stressful.
When everyone knows exactly who owns what, the anxiety drops.
Precisely.
And I imagine the level of oversight going forward shouldn't just be like a blanket policy.
Yeah.
You don't audit the senior graphic designer the same way you audit the entry-level data entry clerk, right?
No, definitely not. The frequency and depth of these ongoing check-ins must be tailored to the complexity of the task.
Okay, how so?
Highly standardized workflows, things that are repetitive and have clear binary right or wrong outcomes, those require much lighter, less frequent check-ins once the system is rebuilt.
You just establish the boundary and step back. But what about workflows that require nuance? Say, handling a VIP client escalation or doing creative problem solving. How do you check in on that without micromanaging their judgment calls?
Tasks requiring high judgment need closer visibility, but not in the form of dictating their every move.
Right, you don't want to hold their hand through every email.
No. You review the outcomes of their judgment calls periodically to ensure they align with the company's philosophy.
That it.
Once you have verified that the team's independent judgment proves consistent and reliable over time, then you can widen the guardrails again. You are building a scalable system that allows everyone to succeed without needing a manager constantly breathing down their neck.
Man, this has been incredibly illuminating. Let's synthesize everything we've unpacked today for the listener, because there's so much actionable insight here for anyone leading or even just working within a remote team.
Absolutely.
First, we have to recognize that the early remote success we see in January is often an illusion. It is a honeymoon phase powered by the Hawthorne effect, where the sheer fact of being observed artificially props up productivity.
You have to assume your early transition data is optimistic, not definitive. It is showing you what the team is capable of under maximum adrenaline, not what the system can sustain under normal conditions.
Right. Second, beware the output trap in Goodhart's law. Dashboards that purely measure volume tasks completed, tickets closed. Those are measuring busyness, not quality.
Exactly.
A green dashboard can easily hide a declining foundation because human nature will naturally drop unmeasured, complex tasks to hit simple volume targets.
The metrics will not save you from the drift.
They really won't. And third, because of sensory adaptation, the team will not notice their own decline. You cannot wait for an external client to sound the alarm.
You have to be proactive.
Yeah. To fix the mid-year drift, you have to perform an audit. You rebuild explicit ownership, eliminate ambiguity, and replace constant supervision with structured, scalable check-ins that are tailored to the complexity of the work.
Which brings us to the core philosophy embedded across all of our sources today. It is the ultimate litmus test for any operation.
What's that?
If your team's performance fundamentally depends on a manager watching closely, you do not have a system. You simply have a phase.
A system versus a phase.
Right. The real true measure of a remote team's operational strength isn't what happens during the excitement of the launch.
Not at all.
It is entirely about what happens months later, on a random Tuesday, when the initial attention inevitably fades, and the team is left alone with the architecture you built.
Such a powerful distinction. A system versus a phase. It forces you to look at your entire operation through a completely different lens.
It really does.
So to you, our listener, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over this week as you navigate your own career or manage your own team.
This is a good one.
Think about a specific process or a daily workflow that you assume is running smoothly right now. Ask yourself, is it actually a self-sustaining system? Or is it just surviving because you are secretly acting as its invisible supervisor, constantly propping it up with quick text messages, gentle reminders, and informal check-ins?
It's a tough question to answer, honestly.
It really is. Take a much closer look this week. Look past the green dashboards. You might be very surprised by what you find hidden in the drift.
Thank you for listening to The Remote Revolution. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with other professionals who are building the future of work. To learn more about how Virtual Mojo helps businesses grow with highly trained virtual assistants and remote support teams, visit www.virtualmojo.com. For inquiries or collaborations, reach out to us at contact@virtualmojo.com. Until next time, keep building smarter systems and embracing the future of work.